Um, Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to everybody here. So far, we have had 55 participants who have logged on. Really much obliged. Thank you very much. I'm Richard Wee from BAC College Representative today. I'm from the law firm of Richard Wee Chambers. We run a series of webinars with regards to areas of practice like litigation, property law, conveyancing. We also run talks on issues related to sports and employment. Employment was a major issue, tourism, SMEs, startups, fintechs, the works. If you're interested, may I invite you to Richard W. Chambers' YouTube page. Just Google Richard W. Chambers. You will find about 20 over webinars there, which were conducted the last 2.5 months. At the same time, if you're interested, we also have a podcast. Go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or even Anchor FM, any of these three. Look for Richard W. Chambers and you will see a series of podcasts. We have more than 20 podcasts for you to log on and listen in. Today is a very significant day because we have a special guest, Dr. Loi, who is an expert in ISO 37001. We are going to explain what is an ISO 3001 for those who are listening to this for the first time. What we intend to do, the flow will be this. I will introduce Dr. Loi in a short while. And then Dr. Loi, I will like you to just maybe within a minute or two, just explain who you are, what you're doing, maybe some sharing of your experiences. And then we will have a flow where we will introduce the definition of bribery within the scope of the new Section 17A of the MACC. And then we'll talk about the history behind 17A. We'll talk about yesterday's announcement by the government on 17A. And then we'll go into... okay, I just heard the recording stop, but it's still recording. There's something wrong with Zoom today, I must say. Okay, so as I was saying, we have an anti-bribery management system discussion afterwards. Then there'll be just nice all the way until 12 o'clock. Now, this talk is supposed to go live on Facebook, but we are struggling to connect to Facebook. In fact, it's still trying to log on to Facebook. And we actually announced that we'll be live on Facebook. So I think people on Facebook are waiting to go and to hear this. And while you are talking, Dr. Loi, please excuse me if I have to excuse myself and try to connect it again to Facebook.
No problem.
Yeah. So without further ado, I think it's still, this Zoom is still recording because I just heard the sound saying that it's not recorded, but the screen indicates it's recording. So I said, as I said, there's something wrong with Zoom today. We've had about 71 participants already. Thank you so much for logging on for today. Dr. Loi, he has his own firm, his own practice in Petaling Jaya, Subang Jaya. And if you Google him, you will find his name strongly associated with Transparency International, anti-bribery movement, not just for the last year, but more than the last 10 years, more than the last almost 20 years. Dr. Loi, you've been involved in this?
Since 2000.
Yeah, so that's a long time to be involved. If you are not an expert after 20 years, then it will be an unfair comment. So I think it's very safe to conclude that if you want to understand anti-bribery movement in Malaysia, especially in terms of the system, right, will be Dr. Loi. Just for the record, some of you may think Dr. Loi is a doctor, medical doctor. He's not. He's a PhD holder, so don't look for him for Panadols. Don't disturb him for Panadols. But at the same time, Dr. Loi, while he's not a practicing lawyer, but he's quite comfortable with knowledge of the provisions of MACC. So without further ado, can I invite Dr. Loi to introduce yourself, maybe for 1 minute? Doctor, all yours.
Well, thank you, Richard B. First and foremost, of course, I express my sincere thanks, especially Richard V. Chambers and also the BAC to invite me to give a short briefing, presentation on what is this MACC Act 17A and also the ISO 37001. I've been involved in this the design and development of this ISO 37001 since its inception in the year 2013. Because I had been actually involved with the standards way back in 1995, ISO standards related to ISO 9000, 14001, which is the environment, 26,000, which is the social responsibility. And my involvement with anti-corruption advocacy started way back in 2000 when I first joined Transparency International Malaysia. And I served as a Deputy President, Secretary General, and I was once the Vice Chair of this coalition called the UNCAC, which is the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, a coalition of more than about 300 NGO worldwide. And I served as a Vice Chair for one term. And of course, recently I've been involved in anti-corruption research work, and I have attended two international anti-corruption academic in Beijing and also in Seoul. So besides this, actually, that is a little background about myself. My involvement not only in the transparency, but lately I've been also involved with the United Nations Development Program as the advisor for this fair business environment. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is a little bit about myself and my contact. If you need to reach me at any time, yeah. Okay.
Much obliged. Yeah. Now, very nicely introduced. So as we can see, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Loi has been there, done it. You know, you clearly have acquired the relevant knowledge and experience on this area. So, Dr. Loi, before we go into your expertise of the ISO 37001, we know you are very, very well versed with the anti-bribery management system, ABMS. Perhaps let's discuss the exciting news. So yesterday, the Prime Minister's department, I assume it would have been announced by the Minister in charge of law, issued a statement that Section 17A will come into effect on 1st of June this year. Just some historical background. The Section 17A was added into the MACC Act sometime in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Loi. And we've all been waiting for the last few years for it to come into effect. And initially, I think just a few weeks ago, there were comments that perhaps the 17A would be delayed for a few more months or maybe even a year. So suddenly we were all caught by surprise because the government yesterday announced that it will come into force on 1st of June. So perhaps, Dr. Loi, can I invite you to give a quick observation of what you've seen, the history of 17A and what 17A is about going into 1st of June. All yours, Dr. Loi.
Thank you. Let me quickly go back into, the background of what is this bribery and bribes about, which lead to the Section 17A before I conclude what is the development and expectation of us, Malaysian, with regard to this Section 17A. As you know, a bribe or bribery you find definition in any dictionary. But most uniquely, Transparency International has defined bribe as an offering, promising, or giving or accepting any or soliciting of advantage, And this gift could be in any form, money, gift, loan, and fees as well. But interestingly, if you were to conduct any forensics investigation or even do any internal audit, you were never able to find the words, the bribe or bribery itself. What I'm trying to say is that way back in 1985, when I first buy my first car, I was asked to pay football money. And I don't know what is football money because I hardly play any football. At that time, we were calling football money. Of course, nowadays you hear a lot about drink coffee, tea money, under the tables. Even now, some people say that it's on the table, and now including the tables, they sapu as well. Yeah. But two interesting things that you heard, of course, is actually the word 681 American pie. And of course, one American pie is equivalent to $1 million US, And that 681 American pie is also translated into 2.6 billion ringgit. Yeah, we heard of kickbacks, but interestingly, in Indonesia, you see this word called Washington apples and Malang apples. And what are they? If you want to pay bribe in Indonesia, they use the word Washington apples, and Washington apples means to be paid in US dollars, whereas the Malang apples means to be paid in Indonesian rupiah. And they have one word called the pempek. Pempek is the word used in South Sumatra, and it was during one of their local election. They used to pay bribe, give bribe, and they pay this, and they use the word pempek as well. I love you and wo aini. What's this thing? Interesting thing. It's actually, if you want to be paid in US dollars, we say I love you, and if you want to pay it in renminbi, it's called wo aini. And these are some of the terms that probably we see that it is being used, and bribery is one form of corruption. Yeah, in the form of corruption, in the sense that corruption has a wider definition, and you can see from here probably they are called kickbacks, nepotism, inside trading, speed money as well, and all this definition. But Transparency International defined that abuse of power for personal or private gain is the corruption. Yeah. So and then I'll lead you that there are probably 5 corruption offenses as they define in the MACC Act. Sections, when the first 4 is actually which has been gazetted. Receiving gratification is under section 16 small a as an individual, and section 17 small a is receiving through an agent. Number 2, offering or giving bribe, section 16b, giving as an individual or giving through an agent, section 17 small b. Intends to deceive, false claim is section 18. Abuse of power is section 23. And of course, by June 2020, they are going to introduce this section 17 capital A, offense by commercial organization. So that is why a lot of us, and you see that they are emphasizing on the word section 17 capital A, because there is an existing section 17 small a, which talk about receiving bribe through an agent. Yeah. And besides just that section 17A and the 4 or 5, 4 others corruption offenses, you also have to look into the other prescribed offenses, which is apply across in term related to Election Act, Custom Act, and others as well. So don't forget that, you know, when you're talking about bribery or corruption, it's not just section 17A or 16, but also the other prescribed offenses. And not forgetting, of course, the money laundering, which is a very powerful legislation. Okay? Corporate liability, way back, France is among the first country to introduce the corporate liability in 1994. And by the year 2017, we probably have only about less than 25% worldwide country has actually introduced this corporate liability. And you hear that with this new wave of legislation, some of these law are been passed in this about 10 countries. UK Bribery Act, France Sapin 2, Brazil has interesting what they call the Clean Company Act. Of course, the US we have the SCPA, and Malaysia we are going to introduce our section 17A now. Way back in August 2013. Actually, at that time, Tan Sri Abdul Kasim has mentioned that MACC is going to introduce this law, corporate liability law. Way back in 2013, you know, it came out in this paper, right? So it is nothing new. And our current existing corporate liability provision, Section 17A, is actually tailored after Section 7 of the UK Bribery Act, failure of commercial organization to prevent bribe. Yeah. And our act, Section 17A, the bill was first debated in March 26, 2016, passed on April 5th, 2018, received the royal assent on 27 April 2018, and it was gazetted on May 4th, 2018. a few days before the general election. Understand? In other words, this act was actually passed, approved, and gazetted during our PN regime. Okay. So quickly, I want to go through that Section 78 subclause 1, and most of us know that this is an offense by a commercial organization. That if any person associated with that organization corruptly agreed to give, promises or offer to any person or any gratification, yeah, for the benefit of the organization, yeah, at getting advantage, and that is an offense under Section 17 subclause A. But what's this gratification? You never see the word bribe, but gratification is defined in the MACC Act, which could mean swapan, money, donation, gift, loan, fees, reward, anything which is property, valuable security, things like that. And even any employment, dignity, contract of employment services. Yes. So these are part of the definition of gratification, which is swapan, which is more than just money and donation. And even any valuable consideration, any kind, discount, commission, rebate, bonus, deduction, and percentage. And this is very important, especially related to commercial organization. So one way or the other, we do have certain what we call referral fees or commission being paid, but we have to take now into consideration what do you mean when you apply the Section 17A, yeah?
Yep.
So the others comes into it. And of course, clause 2 indicate that the conviction is about not less than 10 times the sum or the value of the gratification.
Yeah.
1 million, whichever higher, imprisonment of not exceeding 20 years jail term, or both. Yeah, that is catch. Correct?
Yeah.
And then we use the word associated person. Who are this person associated with this organization? It could be the director, controller, officers, partner, and those who are in the management of that affair. That means on that account, the top management or the management who pass or what we call approve that payment is also answerable to this offense as well. And sometimes the word controller, we could refer to the financial controller, but in other countries, controller could be, as in Malaysia now with our Company Act, the beneficial ownership is also the controller, yeah? Okay? And subclause 8 covers that who are these organizations, commercial organizations. So companies that is incorporated under our Company Act, carrying business in Malaysia or elsewhere. Company that is operating incorporated elsewhere, but carrying the business in Malaysia. Partnership, okay, limited LLP, yeah, and also partnership which is operated or carrying business in other part of the, but having business in Malaysia. Yeah. So this is generally the snapshot of what Section 17A is about.
Interesting. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Loi. You really have summarized it for all of us. So basically, if I can just, my style of moderating is, I would like to just try and summarize for our listeners to really understand what's happening. Long story short, 17A will make a corporate company liable, and corporate has been included, notwithstanding my usage of the word company, partnerships, LLP, and even associated firms. In fact, if you look at the way things are running in UK under the Bribery Act and the 1934 American law for their company laws in America, even subsidiary companies may be liable for this. And we've heard that Dr. Loi mentioned the imprisonment and the penalty. But you know, Dr. Loi, surely it cannot be so cut and dry that if one of the employees of a company is unfortunately involved in the activity of bribery, it cannot mean that the company will be immediately liable, isn't it, Dr. Loi?
Yep.
So, and I know for a fact, which will come into that soon, there are defenses involved, and that's where I think ISO37001 will come into play. But before that, let's also discuss about this flowing from the 17A 1 and 2, let's discuss about the scope of liability. So does it mean, Dr. Loi, if let's say a company officer, this person was involved in the activity of bribery, like let's use some of the cases in UK. Hang on, let me find the case. In the case in UK and US, there was a case involving the Rolls-Royce case. So in the Rolls-Royce case involving the Serious Fraud Office of UK, and I'm using UK because in Malaysia they have no reported cases yet, simply because 17A has not been in operation yet. So in the Rolls-Royce case, for example, there were numerous amount of corruption and bribery by the staff. How will that connect to the company, Dr. Maybe you can explain to everybody here. Staff wrong, company also wrong. How did that connect? All yours.
Okay. Refer to the UK Bribery Act. You know that the UK Bribery Act was first, UK Bribery Act was 2010, but it was enforced in June or July 2011. Yeah. And the first case that came up in UK was actually case number 51, the Standard Bank, in November 2015. And the Rolls-Royce case was actually not the first case, yeah, but it was considered one of the first case which have a deferred prosecution agreement. UK Bribery Act related to this Rolls-Royce case was in January 2017, and they were fined the amount of about 600 over million pound. But under the DPA agreement, they paid only 497 million pound, but it's still chargeable. But this UK Bribery Act related to this Rolls-Royce was nothing compared to the most recent case of this Airbus, January 31st, 2020, this year. Under this Airbus, and they were fined to the tune of about 3.6 billion ringgit. It was implicated, and that was a very interesting case study. And I will say that when we are talking about the associate personnel, and I'm going to give you this hypothetical scenario now. Imagine what happened is one of the sales representatives decided to give gratification in the form of a free air ticket plus hotel accommodation for two to this Hong Kong Disneyland. And today, you know that if you happen to go to Hong Kong, it's so cheap now, yeah, air ticket. Yeah, but look into here. The sales representative had to meet his quarterly target and decided to give incentives so that the buyer can pull extra stock for the next following months. And the top management of this company act found out that it is unnecessary excess stock in their warehouse. And internal investigation found that the buyer has actually collaborated with a salesperson. And they reported to MACC. And now you realize that bribery probably have taken place. You in a position, so you will have to go to the court, and your court will ask you. And it says that, yes, I know that your organization has adopted this corporate governance guide and a conduct of conduct and ethics says that no bribe are permitted. But your bribe has been paid by an agent to get this contract. Tell us, what procedure did you put in place to support this evidence that the code of conduct and ethics have been followed by all? So what are you going to answer? Yeah, that is interesting. That's the scenario. So in this context, under the section or subclause 4, if an organization is charged for offense and now they have to prove you're innocent, and this organization has the defense, is to prove that they have put in place what we call adequate procedure to prevent person associated with a commercial organization or undertaking this such conduct. And subclause 5 indicated the minister had issued this guideline, and it was issued also in December. This word adequate procedure is also referred similarly to what the UK Bribery Act having an adequate, what we call an effective anti-bribery or corruption compliance program in place. So this is where Malaysia, we are tailored on this. UK have this 6 principle called the adequate procedure. US FCPA have what we call the 10 hallmark, and in Malaysia, we developed this principle called the adequate procedure based on this acronym TRUST. Top T for top level commitment, risk assessment, undertaking control measure, systematic review, monitoring and enforcement, and then trust training and communication. And this is where we use that to address, to help us as a act of defense. Yeah, and it was launched by the Prime Minister number 7 then on December the 7th, and it was to help company to instill a culture of integrity and to address this Section 17A. So this minister guideline, as you know, is now easily available. You can download from this website, yeah, the GICC website, and also they have recently came out with some case study as a reference. You can have a look, yeah, to that. And there are 5 principles. Top level commitment. It is not top management commitment, by the way. It is top level. It involves top management and the board of directors as well. You have heard this word called tone from the top. But today is not just tone from the top, but it is more than just tone from the top, but conduct from the top. Conduct, you know, conduct as the top management to show them they are really the role model, not just NATO, yeah, talk only. But it's not only conduct. It is not only tone from the top, but conduct from the top. And that is what we meant by the top level commitment. Risk assessment needs to be carried out. And most importantly, bribery risk assessment is to carry out to identify potential bribery risk. A lot of companies fail to do this because they thought that we are going to identify existing or previous bribery risk. No. To be effective, an organization should go beyond just identifying bribery risk, but also potential bribery risk that it could happen. It may not have happened before, but what would be is a potential bribery risk we're talking about.
Interesting.
But principle number 3 is actually undertaking controls. We have to conduct due diligence. We have a proper reporting channel. Lay down your policy, your gift policy, entertainment policy, travel policy, your anti-bribery policy, establish financial and non-financial control, and have proper documentation. In this context, when talking about gift, what is actually gift? Under the government public service circular, gift has been identified as cash money, free fare, shares, lottery ticket, and things like that. Yeah. Is hamper of a small value perceived as a bribe. Accepting and giving of gift, any amount, is amount to corruption. Understand? And it was actually defined or been expressed in the directive under the government directive SC3. Can a public servant receive gift during festival? Public official has been prohibited from accepting any gift in any form, ang pao, mandarin, hampers as well. Okay, that is considered gift. It is not permissible under the directive. Can they receive ang pao or money packet at official function? No. It's also not permissible to receive or to receive any of this gift. Okay. Can a civil servant receive gift from any party in an unofficial capacity? Yes, you are allowed to receive any gift in an unofficial capacity, provided it's only 1/4 of your salary and not more than 500 ringgit. And this is why sometimes you hear someone at one time the directive that a politician at any function should not receive any gift more than 500 ringgit. Okay? If it's more, you have to get the permission from your head of department. What should be done is a gift such as hamper, flower banquet has been given. Yeah. For instances, you receive it without any knowledge, you have to refer and report to your head of department. Public officer, can they accept breaking of fast? Of course, today during the COVID-19, there's no breaking of fast. But actually, such directives have been given. No invitation are permitted, provided they are not permitted, provided they are not related to their functions. So we should not start inviting government official for breaking of fast. If a sport club of a department, are they allowed to receive payment or contribution or donation? No. It's only the National Sport Welfare Council can, you can make payment to that national, but not to the departmental welfare club, understand? So collectively, they will collect it at the national level, and if the department or level, state level, if needed, they can apply. So cannot provide any funding to the departmental club, sport club. Ticket, air tickets, free air ticket. Can we get? No. It's also considered as an offense. Remember, there are a lot of cases we hear. Some officers are given the first class, but they downgrade themselves to the economic class. And then this is considered not legal as well, not ethical, because usually they are entitled to business class or first class. When they convert the ticket into economic class, the surplus are used to purchase additional ticket for their sibling or their family member, right? So this also talk about gift and souvenir. If it's in terms of now, flower, fruits, books are also accepted, but not in other form. So this is where I'm trying to share with you that, you know, when you are talking about this gift in term policy is very important. And with this section 17A coming in, we have to be even more careful where some of these transactions could be disguised as a bribe. You know, these are some of these things to be careful. Even football money, football transfer, sponsorship, it could be considered sometimes disguised as a transaction. Just watch out, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So, principle 4 talk about systematic review, enforcement. This is where you're going to have what we call regular monitoring of your activities. And of course, lastly, training and communication. Yeah, so it's very important. Now, the governments have come out with this adequate procedure as a guideline, as I mentioned. But take note, this is not one size that fits all, because whenever you present to the judge at that time, it is the court to decide whether your organization, will be able to establish that you have actually have this adequate procedure in place or not. So remember one case in UK, which is actually case number 79, the Sakin Interior case in March 2018. What happened is that they were charged, they presented their in court, they do have this adequate procedure. However, the court find out that they do have adequate procedure, but they do not have what we call an effective procedure. You may have a well-written procedure. Everything is very well written. It is as thick as a telephone directory book, but it was not effectively communicated to all in the staff. It was kept in the lock and key, in the cupboard for a very long time, and a lot of the staff in the organization doesn't know that is such thing called adequate procedure, anti-bribery policy. So that is not effective as well. It is not how adequate your procedure are, but it's what we call how effective are your procedures. Your 5 principles, are they effectively implemented, carried out, and made known to all? Yeah. So this is where you're going to ask in the court. You tell the court that you have adopted a ministerial guideline on adequate procedure, and they will ask you, is the implementation effective or not? And this is how are you going to answer in court? Yeah.
Well, all right. Thank you, Doctor. Basically, ladies and gentlemen, quick recap. It's already just nice. It's 11:35. There are 117 of us here. Thank you very much for signing in to listen in to Dr. Loi and BAC College. I repeat, this talk was supposed to be live on Facebook, but unfortunately, for some reason today, internet is not friendly with us. So we will be recording this and uploading it on the YouTube for other people to watch. And Dr. Loi so far has been talking about the concept of TRUST. So sometime in December 2018, the minister in the Prime Minister's department had issued a guideline. We're going to talk about it now. A guideline on what it means by adequate procedures. Why are we talking about this? Under Section 17A sub 4 of the MACC Act, there is a defense prepared and provided for any company who may be facing an action under 17A1 or prosecution under 17A1. So if, as a lawyer, let me just explain to you, if you are charged, of course, your lawyers will firstly try to challenge the charge and try to see whether the charge can be dropped. But if the charge continue to press on and you now see the company appearing in court, then you can rely on the provision of 17A sub 4. And under 17A, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. 17A sub 5, right? The minister is empowered to give so-called guideline. So that is what Dr. Loi was talking about. In the guideline, the ministry have come out with the concept of TRUST, trust. You can find that in the government guideline from December 2018. Now let's talk about 17A4, Dr. Loi. Very interestingly, in 17A4, the words used by Parliament if I can just read out, if a commercial organization is charged for the offense in subsection 1, which you have explained, Dr. Loi, it is a defense for the commercial organization to prove that the said organization had in place adequate procedures, very interesting, adequate procedures to prevent persons associated with the commercial organization undertaking such conducts. So today, for now, for the next half an hour or so, let's talk about adequate procedure. So you have already explained very kindly, Doctor, that in the eyes of the ministry, the guideline given was under paragraph 4 of the guideline. If I can just get a copy of the guideline. It says that TRUST stands for we have risk assessment, we have training, we have undertaking control measures, and of course monitoring and enforcement. All that, Doctor, you have already mentioned, so I'm not repeating. But you know, Doctor, that is just a guideline from the government. If let's say you, and I know you have constantly advised a lot of companies and partnerships and LLPs, someone comes to you, hey, doctor, ayo, susah lah. Now this thing is happening to us. What must I do to become adequate procedure? So what would your advice be, Doctor? What would you give them as a guideline to protect themselves under 17A4? All yours, Doctor.
Thank you. Now you realize that way back in 1990s, since then, even for the medical industry in USA, the authority have told them that you, medical industry, way back in 1990, you have to implement what we call compliance program. And a compliance program, this is what sometimes a lot of people are not easy to understand, because sometimes when you have a compliance program, you never know how wide, how deep, how far reaching that your compliance program need to be. And that is why when we came out with this adequate procedure, the UK adopted this 6 principles of adequate procedure. And when they struggle about in 1 year to address what is this adequate procedure. So much so, the ISO, or rather the British standard, BSI standard, this British standard institution decided to come out with a standard called BS 10,500. And this BS 10,500 is the anti-bribery management system. They developed it and published in the year 2011 to help the UK industry to address their UK Bribery Act and the adequate procedure. And that is why, along this line, if you were to comply to this word adequate procedure, sometimes we use the word adequate measured. Yeah, you should, as an organization, adopt this ISO 37001 anti-bribery management system, which allows you and give you a proper assurance that you would establish and improve the ABMS system within the context. And this ABMS system, ISO 37001, is a globally accepted standard. So as I say, UK have adopted this, their British standard 10,500 to address the adequate procedure. And the ISO 37001 now has given better clarity of how both the UK Bribery Act and also our Malaysian MACC Act, especially Section 17A, would able to address this what called vacuum, yeah. And then this ISO is called the International Organization for Standardization. It's an organization responsible to promote or develop this standard. Today, there are 164 country members, and they have developed more than 23,000 standards. Yeah. So at organizational level, yeah, they have this quality standard for ISO 9001. They have environmental standard, which is ISO 14001. They have safety standard, which is ISO 45001. So if there is a standard to address bribery, and they realized that it is important to have this standard, and it was called the ABMS. So the British standard developed this ABMS 10,500, yeah, to help the organization to implement it to address their corporate liability, address their corporate liability section 7 of the UK Bribery Act, all right? And if you remember, ISO 9001 quality measurement system was also what we call a spin-off from the British standard called BS 5750. BS 5750 was developed in UK as a management system. Last was in the year 1984. And the ISO adopted it, translated into international standard, and ISO 9001 was published in the year 1987. Similarly, the ISO, or through the BSI, they decided to escalate their British standard into an international level. So the ISO decided to form this committee called the Project Committee 278 to design an international ABMS system. And it was started in the year 2013. Mr. Niall is the chairman. I was the vice chair, and we have the secretary, Mr. Mike Higgin. And we formed this project committee, started off with the new work item in June 2013. And we have about 5 meetings across the globe, starting the first meeting in Madrid, in second meeting in USA, third meeting in Paris, fourth meeting in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia itself in the year 2015. And finally, the last meeting, the 5th meeting was held in Mexico City. And in Mexico City, the chairman was not able to attend, and I have to chair the meeting. And we have representative from Malaysia. These two. This is Dato Sri Mustafa Ali. At that time, he was the Deputy Chief Commissioner of MACC. And Dato Junipa is now the Deputy Chief Commissioner of MACC for Management. And we have a delegation from Malaysia to attend the final meeting held in Mexico. And that standard was published in the year 2016. In October 2016, ISO 37001 was published. The content of the this standard is similar to the ISO 9001, the management system. So we have clause 1 to 10. 4, contact of organization, leadership. 6, talks about planning. 7, talks about the support. 8, operation is the most important of that standard related to ABMS, which cover the key area or the core of the anti-bribery management system. Remember, the adequate procedure has this word, financial control and non-financial control. We have the gift policy, and this is where raising concern talking about whistleblowing. And clause 8 is the most important core requirement of the ABMS system. We have performance evaluation and improvement. So in a nutshell, the ABMS is actually a management system help us to prevent, detect, respond, and investigate bribery. And this is a key area that the management system has, and which will probably address the adequate procedure. So I want to bring to you to a milestone of this ISO 37001. We have the US FCPA in the year 1977, and they have what we call the 10 hallmark of an effective program. The Transparency International was established in 1975. The OECD Anti-Bribery Convention was in 1997. They have 13 good practices. UNCAC came out, yeah, and UK Bribery Act in 2010. They have what we call the 6 principle and adequate procedure. So 2011, British Standard developed their own BS 10,500 ABMS to address their Bribery Act. So similarly, at the international global platform, we have established this ISO 37001 to help out to address the global trends of this, what we call the new trend of anti-corruption legislation. And this is how it goes, yeah? Okay?
Yes. Thank you so much, Doctor. Basically, ladies and gentlemen, we have about 120 people already on board today. Thank you so much for logging in. And before I could invite questions, our enthusiastic participants have put forward some very, very good questions, which we will tackle in a short while. So basically, to summarize so far, what Dr. Loi has explained to all of us is the measures which may bring the shield of defense to you under 17A4 of the MACC Act. And one of the proposed ways of, other than the ministerial guideline under section 17A5, Dr. Loi is suggesting for the companies to subscribe and obtain the standards of ISO 37001, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Loi, in Malaysia, it is run by inter alia SIRIM. Malaysia SIRIM is running it. Is that correct, Dr. Loi?
Well, I would say that there are a few certification bodies that can certify an organization to this ABMS system. So it's not only SIRIM, but there are also other systems or other organizations which can certify to the ISO standard. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Now, what happened now? Can you all see my slide?
I see Q&A.
I don't know what happened now. Okay.
But never mind. Hold on, Doctor.
Okay.
Yeah.
We still have that. What I'm trying to say now, I want to go to the other slide, but I can't. Can I go to the next slide?
It's unfortunate not moving. Never mind, Doctor. Why don't you verbally test, share with us what are the, there, you can see all your
okay, now
slides.
I can see. Okay, so, okay.
Just for the, I'm just sharing this, Doctor, just for the, while you're searching. There, you want to give benefit to our...
So what happens is that we have this ISO 27001, the Indonesian adopted in January 2017, Singapore adopted in 2017 April, we adopted in October 2017 as well, basically to address this corporate liability. And we launched it in Putrajaya, yeah, this standard. So we have our own Malaysian standard, which is identical as well. So you realize that in this standard, related to adequate procedure, the top level commitment is actually found in the clause 5 of the standard. Risk management, risk assessment is in the clause 4 of the standard. Undertaking controls measured, 5.2 anti-bribery policy, 8.3 and 8.4 financial and non-financial control. 8.7 talks about the gift policy, yeah. Due diligence, 8.2. And also 8.9 raising concern. Now, systematic review is also mapped up in the clause 9 of the ISO 37001, and having investigation and dealing with bribery is clause 8.10. All right. Similarly, training is found in 7.2, 7.3 of the clause, 7.4 communication, and then what I'm trying to say in a nutshell, if you have it adequate procedure, you realize that it's all been under the clause of this 37001. In other words, if you have adopted the ISO 37001, you have addressed your adequate procedure,
Yes.
and it is more complete. There's a 12 way. I'm not going to highlight it, but take note that so a lot of organizations are not fully implemented the GAP guideline as well, and this is a requirement now.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that there are organizations who can certify you to the ISO 37001. So usually you undergo this process. You start with a gap analysis. If we are going for certification, you have to have a training a program in place. Then you develop your adequate procedure. Understand? Policy as well. Important is policy, processes, and procedures. All right? You can adopt the 5 principles, okay? Then you conduct your internal assessment, and then you invite the third party to certify you, okay? And this is how the process of progress in terms of getting certification. The certification body will come and do what we call a stage 1 audit, review their documentation, and when they are ready, they will do what we call an on-site stage 2 audit. And this is where they will verify every implementation stage of your ABMS system. If they find that you have fulfilled the requirement, they will recommend you for certification. And on an annual basis, you need to maintain your improvement, continual improvement, and also have a surveillance audit. There are benefits of certification. I'm not going to go through to them, but you can just quickly review them. Yeah. In Malaysia, SIRIM started off a pilot project. Yeah, and these are some of the organizations initially started as a pilot project with SIRIM and with the CIO association. So they got their company certified. Among them, the first what we call private manufacturing company is the Top Glove. Top Glove is one of the few who to today has established their ABMS system. All right. The first company to be certified worldwide is this organization, oil and gas company called ENI. The ISO was established in October 2016, but this company was certified in January 2017. Yeah, but within a week after they have been certified, there is a scandal reported. Yeah, so it's not so good. What happens is that the certification body went back and re-audit them. And today, this organization has 160 sites worldwide been audited, and their scope expanded. The scope covers from upstream, technical services, midstream, gas and power, refinery and marketing, and also the other supporting processes as well. So what I'm trying to say is that it's important to get certification. And once you have done that, this is how we are going to answer in court. It is not only tone from the top, but we walk the talk. With a conduct from the top to instill integrity in our system, process, and people. We conduct annual corruption risk assessment to identify and prioritize our various compliance risks and to assess our third-party business associate through due diligence. We undertake control measures to address potential risks and conduct periodic review, consistent monitoring, and embark on incident response plan if there is any suspected bribery. We have our anti-corruption policy and other policies in place. We also have detailed training program for employee and business associate. Our internal audit program is effectively planned and carried out. We engage accredited certification body to certify our ABMS system. And this is probably you will be answered in court, but of course not in one sentence. In one sentence, but this is where with this, you have actually addressed the 5 principles of the adequate procedure as a defense when you answer in court, right? So quickly, I just want to share with you is that we do have our anti-national corruption plan, 5 years national anti-corruption plan. And it is good at the parliament sitting on the 18th of May, the Yang di-Persatuan Agong has re-emphasized that this national anti-corruption plan has to be carried out. Yeah, and that it was a very good statement. And I think because of that statement, that is why MSCC decided to enforce the Section 17A
yes,
without any delay. Yeah. So this National Anti-Corruption Plan, there are about 115 priorities or 115 objectives. And among the top 24 of this priority are two important ones, which is the implementation of the Corporate Liability Section 17A and also the introduction of this ISO37001 ABMS system. Because under the objectives 6.24 of this National Anti-Corruption Plan, they are proposing that this ABMS system is to be used as a pre-qualification or requirement for state-owned enterprise, company limited by grantee or private sector. If they were to bid any government contract, they should have this ABMS system in place. Okay, so at that time, in November 2018, the Prime Minister then says that this ISO 37001 should be applied to all ministry GLC to prevent corruption and to develop a culture of integrity. So with this ISO 37001, the other countries, Indonesia has also insisted that their state-owned organization have to have this ISO 37001 by August 2020. But because of the COVID-19, I think Indonesia is going to postpone as well that the CEO, state-owned enterprise will still have to get this ISO 37001, but perhaps, you know, at the end of the year as well. So in this nutshell, quickly, as you realize that at that time in May 2019, Dr. Sri Azam Baki mentioned that this Section 17A will be enforced from June 2020. And of course, on May the 5th, 2020, there is a suggestion that they may delay the implementation of Section 17A. However, few organizations like Transparency International, MICG, FMM, and also the American Chamber indicated that we should not delay the implementation of Section 17A. Thus, yesterday, 21st of May, the PM office have issued a media statement indicating that Section 17A will be enforced with effective of June 2020 without delay. Yeah? All right. So basically take note of this important event. What I'm trying to say that, you know, even in Malay, in UK, Bribery Act, when they have this Section 17A, the first case came out was in 2015. It's not immediately after July 2011. Understand? All right. So of course, the most important significant case today is actually the Airbus case. FCPA, when it was first introduced in 1977, it also took them 2 years. The first American to plead guilty of violating FCPA was fined 50,000 in 2 years' time. But uniquely in Indonesia, Indonesia do not have a corporate liability law, but the High Court interpreted their corporate criminal offense, and it was interpreted in December 2016. By July, they got their first case, and by October, this director of this company was sentenced to 4 years jail term, and the company was fined 3.5 million, yeah, for the first commercial criminal offense in Indonesia. So you will see the situation. Some country will go all out within a year or so, like Indonesia case, but like UK take them 5 years, and some even, interestingly, in Singapore, they do not have the Corporate Liability Act, but they define the word person, both covering natural and legal person, and they are fined accordingly. So with this, take note, ignorance of law is no defense. Similarly, doing nothing is also no defense. So we have to do something now. Yeah, tell me.
Nice. Just
Yes.
nice. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you, doctor. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Poor Dr. Loi had to do a Speedy Gonzales and finish everything in 1 hour. After all, this is just a summary. If you are interested, you can still contact Dr. Loi to speak to him. Maybe invite him to speak at your own events, etc. I'm sure he's open to it, isn't it, Dr. Loi? Huh?
Yep.
We have a few minutes. Actually, time is already up,
Yes.
but I will extend it because I think we have some very good questions. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll try to address your questions. Before we do that, let's summarize again what Dr. Loi has mentioned. So basically, what we are trying to share here is that we're trying to give some sort of a guideline to everybody on what 17A is about. We've heard about the punitive measures in 17A2. We heard the liability provision in 17A1. We've heard about the defense in 17A4, the minister's guideline under 17A5. Flowing from there, we've heard about the national policies on anti-corruption, which was launched by the former Prime Minister Tun Mahathir. And recently, our Yang di-Pertuan Agong, on the very, very short parliament session, announced that the national anti-corruption policies is still very much priority. So flowing from that, if you look at that, therefore companies and partnerships and LLPs would definitely need to take steps to protect themselves. And one of the proposed ways will be, as mentioned in the policy itself, is 37001. If I can add here, Dr. Loi, you don't mind me saying, as a lawyer, I will say that 37001 is a very significant way to create a defense, but it is not a absolute defense. If you put in 37001 in your company, but you don't do anything, you just have it there, but you lepa and that's not effective, it is still not an effective defense. Now, some questions, Dr. Loi, I've summarized it because there are 20 over questions. One question, Dr. Loi, a lot of friends are asking, and in fact, I can see among the attendees, a lot of my friends, lawyers, in-house lawyers, in-house legal counsels, and many industry leaders, they are already here. Firstly, Doctor, do you think this 17A will operate retrospectively? That means if Richard Wee was a bad boy in 2015 for Company X, can Company X be liable for what I did in 2015?
Yeah, as you know, crime doesn't pay, and then sometimes it's also very there's no time frame for corruption case, when crime is committed. But I think the question is whether do we get amnesty or not. That's always the big question. Similarly, if you remember many years ago with Hong Kong ICAC as well, when they were first established, there are a lot of very huge resistance from the police, because at that time they have problem. Police in Hong Kong in the early 60s was also considered corrupted enforcement. So until then, they decided to give amnesty to the police case. So that is something that I think the MSC will look into it. But there's one question put to us, that if their subsidiary is operating in overseas, are they liable or not? Are they covered or not? Yes, don't forget, our MSCC Act has Section 17A included, are extraterritorial. And in fact, under the MSCC Act Section 66, Section 66 indicates that if you have committed offense, corruption offense, in outside of Malaysia, you, a Malaysian citizen, and if you are even a personal resident of Malaysia, you'll still be charged in Malaysia as if that offense has been conducted in Malaysia. Watch out for this Section 66.
In fact, if I can add, Dr. Loi, as an illustration and as a guide, purely as a guide to all the participants here, there is an American case. Of course, it's not applicable fully in Malaysia, but we can refer to it as a guide. And if I can draw strength from the case in America involving Oracle. In the Oracle case, sometime in 2012, Oracle California was actually similarly, under a provision similar to our 17A, was charged for what happened in Oracle India. And in summary, Oracle California was found liable in America for work done in a subsidiary in India. It's just an example of the mentality and the jurisprudence of judges around the world. And I'm not surprised if our Malaysian judges, when they start implementing 17A and they're facing cases under 17A, may implement the same way. I can also add something, Doctor, for everyone to hear here, that in UK, interestingly, companies can be charged if they have no adequate procedure. We have cases where an old case, well, not really old, the company, in fact, admitted to the liability. Sweet Group is an unreported case. There's one. And the other one was, more interestingly, is the Skansen Interiors, reported in 2018. Yeah. So Skansen Interiors, was a classic one where they were charged for not. But in Malaysia, a company cannot be charged because the 17A1 and 2 only makes it liable for if the associated staff did it wrong, and the company will then unfortunately follow through. Now, flowing from there, Doctor, very interesting the way you put up the issues of retrospective. In fact, I dare say, Doctor, I think most judges will be reluctant to impose retrospective decisions simply because, for example, in 2013, a company was not aware about this provision yet. So we'll wait and see how the court interpret this. We'll wait and see. Now, what about issues about this whistleblower, Dr. Loi? We have provisions for whistleblower. Would you like to just maybe in 1 minute explain to everybody here how we can protect the whistleblower?
Whistleblower. Interestingly, we do have our Whistleblowing Protection Act. Understand? My personal view is that our Whistle Protection Act is not so good as expected. Understand? So there is some weaknesses in our own Whistleblowing Protection Act, but we'll talk more about a whistleblowing mechanism rather than the Whistleblowing Protection Act. What I'm trying to say that yes, it's necessary. No, whistleblowing mechanism is something that is part of our adequate procedure of raising concern. There should be a venue for us to whistleblow. And sometimes we do come across that we should protect whistleblower rather than prosecute the whistleblower. Right now. That is always a question of last year, in March or April 2019, the EU have come out with a new directive to adopt their new approach of whistleblowing requirement. And their directive, EU directive, indicate that now, if in Europe, you can whistleblow to any means. To any means, that means that you can whistle to any source, to any means, whether it is press or anyone else related to some illegal thing. And that's what happened during this recent case, which is the Airbus. Now the Airbus, who was the whistleblower, is actually one of the staff. This whistleblower for the Airbus was Lieutenant Colonel Ian, who was actually an army, who has served 24 years in the British Army before he started working for the Airbus subsidiary, and he whistleblowed. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that look into two perspectives. To have a good whistleblowing mechanism, yeah, but what we have in Malaysia is that our Whistleblowing Protection Act need to revise to accommodate more flexibility as well. If you look into this slide, this is called the ISO Technical Committee 309, the governance of organization. At international level, we have this working committee called the working group. Working group 1 is called guidance for governance of organization. And we are going to establish one standard, which is called the ISO 37000. We are developing a handbook called the Anti-Bribery Management System Handbook under the work group 2. Work Group 3 is developing a new standard called the ISO 37002, whistleblowing mechanism. And then we have another work group 4, which is developing a standard called the Compliant Management System, ISO 37301. So along this, at the international level, we are going to develop a new standard or new work item working on what we call anti-fraud control. Just as much as the ISO 37001 itself, we need supplementary standard to help us to strengthen just more than just the ABMS system. And it is why at this level, more proper standards are now being developed to enhance our commitment of governance as well. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, excellent, Doctor. One of the reasons why I pointed out the whistleblower question is that, in my view, if a company put into place, and this is just my take and sharing with everybody here, that if a company put into place an effective whistleblower protection program in the company, that itself will help the company utilize and trigger the shield of 17A4 as an adequate procedure. So I would encourage more and more companies out there, especially those participants here who are perhaps from the company instead from the bar, that you may want to look at the way you protect your staff when they come to you to share information. The act of protection itself may be a shield for the company. So that is something for you to consider. Another aspect, Doctor, some questions about ISO 37001. Oh yeah, before that, sorry, can I just address this? There have been many questions whether we can gain Dr. Loi's comprehensive slides, and the answer is yes, isn't it, Doctor? I understand you are willing to share the slides with everybody here.
Yep.
Thank you. So can I take it that later we can email to BAC, and BAC College then can forward to everybody who's currently on this webinar? Is that okay with you, Dr. Loi?
I'm okay, fine.
Thank you so much, Dr. Loi. Comes here. To everybody here, don't worry, jangan takut, jangan panic. Help is coming. Dr. Loi's PowerPoint will be forwarded to you after this event. Please contact BAC after this. Now back to this. With regards to ISO 37001, Doctor, two questions. Number one, where can we find it and where can we get it? Some questions about how do I find what do you call this, the access to the information of 37001. And then, of course, the next question is, how much does a company roughly have to pay for the audit leading towards obtaining ISO 37001? All yours, Doctor.
Well, you can get a copy of this ISO 37001 from the Department of Standard Malaysia. You can log online with the Department of Standard Malaysia, which is in Bahasa Malaysia will be the JSM, Jabatan Standard Malaysia, and you can purchase it online soft copy. I think it is about 90 ringgit as well. But if you were to purchase the standard, similar standard from the ISO itself from Geneva, it will be probably cost more than 300 ringgit. Understand? So get it online and purchase it from the Department of Standard Malaysia. How much does it cost for the certification? I'd like to remind you, audience, that not necessary all organizations should and must go for certification. You could adopt the ISO 37001 as a management tool. Adopt what is written in that standard to use it as a management tool to develop your ABMS system. But it is not necessary for you to go for certification, because even the adequate procedure mentioned that you have to show proof that you conform to your adequate procedure. Yeah. So, but it is necessary, but it's also good if you want to be certified to ISO 37001 to show that you are actually committed and you are being certified by an accredited certification body. I understand from SIRIM that I think they are charging about 1,500 ringgit mandate for their certification. So that was the fees they mentioned maybe a couple of years ago, but I'm not too sure what is the rate now. There are several certification bodies in Malaysia. SIRIM is one of them. There are another certification body which is also accredited is called the UNICERT, which has an office in KL Central. We have also other certification body, like a few others. Go to their website, Google, and you see that there are several certification body operating in Malaysia.
Okay. Yeah? All right. Thanks, Dr. Loi. That's a very useful information to have. I think most companies will now start working on that. Another question here raised is that, is it really necessary that company must have everything in place by 1st of June, which is just 1 week away? And as you know, Dr. Loi, Malaysians, we are very well known for doing last minute things. Despite the provision has been around for 2 years, suddenly yesterday, you know, Doctor, as you know, you and I, we planned this webinar quite some time ago. When we were planning, it was quite relaxed. You know, we don't know when 17A is coming on. And then we announced this webinar about a week ago. I remembered the reaction was quite lukewarm. But for RWC, Richard V. Chambers, we know it is a very important provision. So that's why we search for you, look for you, and try to get you to come and give a talk to our friends in BAC. Then tiba-tiba yesterday when they announced the thing, boom, there is an explosion of 17A. Suddenly everybody is an expert in 17A. I see on Facebook now. And then of course everyone is rushing to get it. So to ask the question again, with all this kanchongness, do you think companies must put everything in place by 1st of June, or is it a WIP, a work in progress, and hopefully by maybe end of the year, things they can get in running? What is your view, Dr. Loi, on that?
You know, traffic light, red traffic light, under the traffic ordinance or traffic laws, that if you beat a traffic light, you are caught. You have to be, you have to pay the fine or the penalty. Correct? Not? The law is there. So Section 17A was already part of this MACC Act since 2018. But that subclause, Section 17A, was not gazetted for coming into operation then, understand? So now it was mentioned yesterday by the Prime Minister Department Office that they are going to implement it from June the 1st, 2020. So the law are there, whether it's the red traffic light, or even the existing 16A or B, yeah, corruptionally received and corruptly give are there for individuals. Understand? So there are a lot of cases in Malaysia at the moment. Some organizations, some individual has been charged under Section 16A and Section 16B, but they were not charged under Section 17A. In other words, you can still be charged for corruption offenses, but it's a question whether to charge as an individual or as a company.
Company, yes, correct.
A company now, as a corporate, will have to pay a heavy fine.
Yeah.
Because the fine will be not less than 10 times, understand? And minimum of 1 million ringgit. And the year term is 20. And that was the significant part of the fine, in other words. So whatever is the case, whether it is individual or corporate, the law is there. You are subjected to penalty for the corruption act that you have done. Understand? So what I'm trying to say is that the law is there. Yeah? So the question, to beat the traffic light or not. 2 o'clock in the morning, are you going to beat the traffic light? That is your question. Understand?
Yeah.
You give your own answer.
Yeah, that's a very nice way to put it, Dr. Loi. Very, very good. Yeah.
Yeah, the law is there, so it's up to you. So, but we should, what we're trying to say, minimize the corruption risk, try to put in place. Because Section 17A, subclause 4, is saying that if you are caught and the means to defend is to have this adequate procedure. So at the bare minimum, you should put in place some of this adequate procedure. In fact, most organizations do have some form of this measure, Understand? It's just that they are not been properly put in the right place. Yeah, and
Yep.
most organizations are working in silo. The department are working in silo. So it's a matter of time to get this putting in place at its all. And with fine tuning, maybe with me helping and some others consultant, is to put in place, help you to put in place that you are ready. Yeah, this adequate procedure.
All
So
right.
remember my red light theory. Understand?
Cool. Well said, Doctor. Yeah. So, Doctor, you know, it's already 12:20. I know everybody has another webinar or video conference. Now, everybody is busy on video conference every day. With that, I know there are many good questions, but, you know, Dr. Loi can be traced through the Google. You can Google him. You can contact him. You can email him at his website. Can I summarize this, Dr. Loi?
Yes, please.
In short, we have 17A hovering over the nation. All companies, LLPs and partnerships are liable. There's a question whether sole proprietors are liable. Of course, the answer is no. The sole proprietor will be liable alone. But this, we need to find ways to protect the company and make sure we stop or minimize bribery. And look at 17A4 and 17A5, particularly the Minister's Guideline for Protection. We've understood ISO37001 as a recommended one of the ways to put into ABMS, anti-business management system. We've got more than 120 people at the peak of the webinar today. Much obliged. I am Richard Wee from the firm of Richard Wee Chambers. We run a series of webinars, sometimes with BAC, sometimes on our own, where we broadcast live on Facebook. Some of our webinars have reached 15,000 people on interesting topics like employment, esports, SME, startups, fintech. So if you're interested, go to our YouTube page, look for Richard Wee Chambers. You will find more than 20 webinars for you to have a look and listen to. I must thank Dr. Loi. Dr. Loi clearly knows your stuff. Thank you for sharing with us your time, Dr. Loi. Can I invite everybody here to give a cyber round of applause to Dr. Loi? I think, Doctor, now the internet is shaking. They're hearing you clapping hands. In Hokkien, comes here. Thank you very much. To all our Muslim participants, saya ucapkan selamat Hari Raya Aidilfitri kepada semua. Walaupun kita tidak dapat balik kampung, walaupun semalam banyak orang cuba balik kampung, tapi walaupun kita tak dapat balik, saya harap raya-raya kamu masihlah meriah. Kadang-kadang perayaan tu berada di hati, tak payah balik kampung, memandangkan keadaan yang gawat di seluruh Malaysia sekarang ini. With that in mind, Dr. Loi, one last say for you. Anything you want to summarize for 30 seconds before I bring this to a closure? Last words, Doctor?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much, Richard Wee Chambers and also the BAC for organizing this short brief. As I say, it is timely, and I've been involved in this in a way during my times with Transparency International. We are one of the few who are trying to introduce this corporate liability since way back in the year 2012 and 2013, and now to see it is like seeing the journey, going through the journey and the quotation of it. A lot of people may feel that it is a burden to an individual, to the organization as well, with this corporate liability act. But don't forget, I think it's very important to make sure that we as a nation grow, and also to ensure that business are what we call at play in the same level playing field. And I think it's very important to have this corporate liability enforcement put in place. But again, I also like to mention, don't forget, UK Bribery Act 2020 was enforced in July 2011. Understand? It takes them to have their first case heard in a court in November in 2015. So it's a matter of time, whether it's 3 years or 5 years. But Indonesia did it within less than 12 months, because they also want to see the seriousness of this corporate offense. And in China, in the year 2014, they have the first case, which we call addressing the shark, the ikan yu. One drug company in China was fined the first time 300 billion renminbi for corruption case, yeah, in China. And this organization, UK-based company, has to pay 3 billion renminbi, yeah,
Wow.
for corruption case. And the country manager was sentenced to 3 years, whereas the local management, about 5 of them, right from the developing manager to the HR and the sales, they are all went to what they have to serve the 2 years jail sentence. So my last statement is that let us work together and make sure that we are ready to address this corporate liability in one way or the other. It's good for the nation, it's good for us in the business, ensuring that it's a fair business all the way. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Loi. Thank you. I would like to also just wrap up by saying, really, thank you, Dr. Loi. Comes here. Very good to have you here. So difficult to find you, and then finally we got you. I was so happy to get you here. Special thanks to BAC's technical team. BAC has been very kind to us, and our collaboration between RWC and BAC will continue. If I can just give a hint to everybody here, including Dr. Loi, actually we are approaching MACC to come and give a talk. We are working on it, and it'll be also like this, a one-to-one. But of course, MACC is different. They are talking only purely about the provision, whereas Dr. Loi is offering a lot of alternatives and a lot of procedures. So watch out for that. We'll be announcing that in due course. I would like to thank all the participants here for spending your 1.5 hours over here with us. And as Doctor mentioned the word together, I like that. It's been a difficult 2.5 months for the entire world, not just Malaysia. Our conduct and behavior has severely changed. Never did I thought that I'll meet Dr. Loi purely on the video. Normally, we would have, notwithstanding Bulan Puasa, we would be having teh tarik and chit-chat and then probably conduct this in one of the halls somewhere, you know. But here we are doing this way. And but together, to me, together, only together will we prevail. And we have prevailed so far, the last 2.5 months. So with that, I hope we will celebrate Hari Raya together and we will prevail over this infamy together. So thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to end this now and take care, everybody, and see you soon. Bye, Dr. Loi. Bye,
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.